The government is doubling down on housing. Let's have a look. Good evening everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I thought we'd have a look at, well, the recent announcement from the Albanese government about how they're going to build extra houses and help more Australians, or they're helping more Australians buy a home. Now, my argument would be, this is simply the manifestation of this government's method of using the housing market or propping up the housing market or stimulating the economy. It's not really a surprise to any of us. I mean, don't get me wrong, housing affordability needs to be addressed here in Australia. We need to get more housing for people to live in, but I don't think this is going to address those issues, everyone. So let's have a look at this media release first. So, this is from the Prime Minister, Minister for Housing, Minister for Homelessness, Minister for Small Business. And let me get the highlighter here. So, the Albanese government is working with states and territories to deliver the Help to Buy scheme, supporting up to 40,000 low and middle income families to purchase a home of their own. Now, this is the shared equity, I'm assuming that. I mean, do you really want the government owning a chunk of your house? Do you really want that? So rather than maybe addressing negative gearing, which they're never going to, okay, it's not possible, rather than perhaps capping immigration into the country for a period, rather than reducing the red tape to make it easier to build. One thing that New South Wales has done, which is good, they've removed the basic restrictions for a period of time for projects to help them get through, reducing red tape. These are the examples that need to be adopted nationwide. But no, they're going shared equity. This will bring home ownership back into the reach for thousands of Australians who've been locked out of the housing market. The government will provide an equity contribution to eligible participants of up to 40% for new homes and 30% for existing homes. So it's going to be high for new, so there's going to be more support for new stock, and that will also drive up the price of existing stock. The government is committed to providing the opportunity to purchase a home under Help to Buy in all states and territories. For states to participate, legislation will need to be passed for the scheme to operate in their jurisdiction. All states have agreed at National Cabinet progress legislation so the scheme will run nationally. The Albanese government has already helped more than 50,000 Australians into home ownership through the Home Guarantee Scheme, including more than 6,000 through the new regional First Home Buyers Guarantee. Today's announcement builds on the significant commitments made by National Cabinet yesterday, including the new national target of building 1.2 million well-located new homes over 5 years, from the 1st of July 2024. I mean, these are good aspirational goals. You want more homes built. We also need to make it easier for people to build. I mean, this is the thing. It's well located. People will talk about all this land in Australia. Like we've got one commenter mentioned, there's all this land in Australia. It's so huge. It's not like Germany, which is much smaller with a greater population and greater density. Yeah, but a lot of Australia is shithouse, okay? You go too far in that, you don't want to live there. Employment opportunities are significantly limited. You've got some towns where, what's the work? What's the opportunities? Working for the mines or working for the government? And you work for the mines, you fly in, you fly out, fly in, fly out. There's towns, old mining towns that are getting completely shut down that the mines own because it's cheaper, more efficient for the mines to set up a camp and fly people in and out. It's just the reality of it these days. The new home bonus, $3 billion of performance-based funding for states and territories who achieve more than their accord targets and undertake reforms to boost housing supply and improve housing affordability. Okay, I like that idea. You want to undertake reforms. My argument would be to reduce legislation and red tape. We've got new changes to the National Construction Code being rolled out in different states, which is going to affect the cost of builds, up to 30 grand. Maybe we put that on hold for a decade. Housing Support Program, a $500 million competitive funding program for local and state governments to kickstart housing supply. Okay, 500 million. How many? What, 500 houses? Oh, no, they'll be cheaper to build. They won't be $1 million houses. But when you cut the land in it, you know how much is a block in most of these well-located areas? A better deal for renters, which includes developing a nationally consistent policy to require genuine reasonable grounds for eviction, moving towards limited rent increases to once a year, and phasing in minimum rental standards. Okay, yeah, there's nothing that I think is exceptionally concerning. I'm glad they're not going down a rent cap. I mean, once a year increase, it just means that you'll save it all up for once a year. Minimum rental standards, we've got to be careful if they're too onerous. There's certain things which some would argue are a necessity and which others would argue is a luxury. Now, the problem is when what I would consider as a luxury is deemed a minimum standard, that will drive up the minute cost. All of these things, all of these standards, all these requirements drive up the cost. But, I mean, you know, I'm middle-aged, geriatric, a millennial, so what I'll be willing to put up with is different to others. And maybe, you know, younger people want all these perks and bonuses. These commitments are on top of the Albanese government's ambitious housing agenda, which includes the $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund, which will help fund 30,000 new social and affordable rental homes in its first 5 years. The minimum of this scheme is $200 per month per state. It's not going to make a significant difference. Don't we already have other funds? Why aren't they using those to build housing? Or, you know what, maybe take money out of these funds and just allow people to write off all of their mortgage interest on their first home. How about that as an opportunity to get people in the market? The $2 billion social housing accelerator to deliver thousands of new social homes across Australia. Okay. The $350 million to deliver 10,000 affordable homes through the National Housing Accord over 5 years. I mean, 10,000 is, that's 10,000, but what are we looking at? That's a month's worth of building approvals. This is over 5 years, until 2029, everyone. This is the thing. Remember, we're in the middle of a construction apocalypse. We've lost a lot of capacity in our residential construction sector. So this is going to be interesting to see how it can be delivered. It's going to be a challenge. This is a challenge. It certainly is. Up to $575 million in funding unlocked from the National Housing Infrastructure Facility with homes already under construction across the country, increasing the maximum rate of Commonwealth rent assistance by 15%, the largest increase in more than 30 years. And rent assistance, this is reducing the burden on social housing. So it's more efficient for governments to pay rent assistance than it is to build all this social housing for everyone. An additional $2 billion in financing for community housing providers for more social and affordable rental housing through the National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation. New incentives to boost the supply of rental housing by changing arrangements for investment in build-to-rent accommodation. Here's the thing with build-to-rent. One of the advantages of it could be is you've got long-term holding of the property. So you have a different perspective of the builder, the developer. $1.7 billion one-year extension of the National Housing and Homelessness Agreement with states and territories, including a $67.5 million boost to homelessness funding over the next year. And then we've got the quotes that we can attribute. I'll let you read those. Our government will help 40,000 low and middle income families buy a home. How has the industry responded to this? And we have here an email I received, a media alert from a media release from the Master Builders of Australia. So let's have a look. So the peak body for the building and construction industry, Master Builders, has today applauded the game-changing measures to boost much-needed housing supply while taking pressure off some of the most vulnerable in our communities. Master Builders Australian CEO, Danita Warren, says we know from social and community housing rental properties to owner-occupiers there is a common constraint, supply. All levels of government last year acknowledged the imperative of housing supply with the establishment of the Housing Accord, and now there are real commitments on the table. Governments across all levels must now implement the measures announced today as a matter of urgency. The master builders had forecast that we need at least 200,000 dwellings constructed a year in order to meet demand. The revised new national target of building 1.2 million well-located homes over 5 years is welcome news and shows commitment to go above and beyond above the baseline requirement. What we're going to see, here's the thing, guys, there's going to be a whole lot of NIMBYs, not in my backyard crowd, that won't want the densification in the well-located areas that we need. You know, if you're living in a city, there's so much of Brisbane. It's crazy that you've still got detached housing, 5 minutes from the CBD in Brisbane. We need to go to the root of the supply problem, getting projects off the ground, which are lagging due to a combination of high costs, a declining investment appetite from rising interest rates, and delays in approvals. A national planning reform blueprint that looks at the key pinch points in the building process from planning, zoning, and land release will be a key pillar in addressing our housing supply challenges. The new home bonus and housing support program will assist governments to undertake the array of reforms necessary to boost supply and offset some of the costs. Master Builders has long advocated for a federal incentive payment program that looks at planning delays, developer charges, zoning restrictions, and housing infrastructure investment. The cost of building homes has been exacerbated over recent years, with unnecessary delays and barriers encountered on their journey to completion. This includes planning impediments, lengthy approval processes, and high developer charges on new land developments. Master builders had previously modelled that these charges and delays can add up to 30% to the cost of a new greenfield housing development. The focus on supply must be across the entire housing market that will facilitate movement through the housing spectrum, enabling low-cost housing to become more affordable. National Cabinet has thankfully resisted the temptation of rent caps and freezers, which is a harmful intervention in the rental market. Yes, so this, I 100% agree. I'm shocked that this is actually being discussed with any seriousness here in Australia in the 21st century, with all the historical precedent that shows it's a disaster. That just tells me we have politicians that are simply chasing the fifis and the feelings, not reality. And, well, they're the Greens, everyone. So I'm not making this up. I'm not spinning tales. Just look at where this has been done everywhere else in the world. It doesn't work. And they're proposing it. They are proposing it with a straight face. And it just shows me how many people don't even think about what they're voting for. Honestly. That's what's more concerning. With Parliament returning in a matter of weeks, it's imperative the Greens and opposition now put politics aside and pass the Housing Australia Future Fund and housing supply bills. We cannot afford to play politics with the lives of many Australians who are struggling to absorb the increase in the cost of living and housing costs. I mean, this is from the master builders. Migration will play an essential role in the delivery of new homes, with the building and construction industry needing 500,000 new workers by the end of 2026. Migration's never going to be reduced here in Australia. It will never be reduced. Don't kid yourself. Labor and Liberal can't reduce it. Globally, we're reaching peak population very soon, and there'll be competition to get more people to move to Australia. We need the tax base to provide all the services that everyone loves and holds dear, and all the give-me's that they count on. Migration isn't going away. If anything, it'll increase. The decision to develop a principles-based multi-year planning model for migration will help strike the right balance to ensure we don't have unnecessary pressure on the housing market while still having enough workers to build the homes we need. We need to ensure the infrastructure, and that includes housing, that includes water, is in place to meet for our population growth. So Australia still has the quality of life that we all love. Okay, I know everyone loves to bitch and moan about shit that annoys us. And, on YouTube, it's pretty much a profession, but Australia's got it pretty good. Master Builders acknowledges the ongoing efforts of the Prime Minister and Minister Julie Collins in making housing a national priority and listening to concerns raised by the building and construction industry. We will continue to work collaboratively with governments to ensure the building and construction community has the capacity and does not face unnecessary barriers in order to deliver the homes we need, Ms. Warren said. So you can see there how the industry is responding generally in favour. Now, this ties into my argument of what I call the pillars of the Aussie housing market. You've got people who are expecting a calamitous crash in the property market. Housing's going to come tumbling down, and then I'll finally be able to leap on it and buy it and afford it. And I think that's just a hopeless approach to getting into the housing market. If you're waiting for a massive correction as your opportunity to get in, if you're trying to time the market like that, there's people who've been doing that forever. They've been waiting for decades. So, if we have a look here, the first pillar is fewer bad loans. Non-performing loans are a tiny fraction of residential loans. They've been going down since they peaked during the pandemic, guys. You've got opening the gates. Migrants and students are returning to Australia. That's not changing. It's never going to change. Don't kid yourself. Politically, neither of the two major parties will take it seriously because they know our birth rates are not sufficient without migration. You're going to have countries competing for people over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And they know that because no one's having kids. Well, actually, no. There's a good documentary. I should share it with you all. It's not that people aren't having children. People still are. Freakish families like mine who are huge, we're still about 6%. That hasn't changed. The problem is people who are not having kids, is increasing significantly. People aren't hooking up. People aren't settling down. People aren't having families. I'd argue housing affordability is certainly one part of that, but also just, social media and the way people date these days. It's very different to how when we were younger. So migration, if you're counting on that to be reduced, I wouldn't bet a carton on it, guys. You've got construction apocalypse, which I think we're at 100 videos now in this playlist. I have to update this PowerPoint. But this is going to reduce our ability to meet this supply. This is concerning. You've got now we've had the external administration and the impending collapse. I think we've reached the peak of that and we're returning to normal. You've got government support. Well, every time there's a need for stimulus of the economy, they go to housing. You've got the cash rate when they crash it down to 0.1%. I'll be shocked if we ever see that again. I know people are waiting for a correction in the cash rate. The RBA, the CommBank has predicted one. I reckon will be between 3 and 5% for the next few years. That's what we want. We want it to be nice. We want life to be nice and boring, okay? Pandemic, all the craziness, that's a once-in-a-100-year event. Home builder juiced up the market. You can see it on the chart there. You've got first home buyer grants, 5 and 2% government loan guarantees. Now, here's the thing. We're not as stupid as in America where they just gave everyone a loan based on ideology. Here, they capped it at 10,000. Negative gearing is part of our culture. It's not even been addressed. It won't be addressed. The super withdrawals, I don't blame people for using that money, but it just shows you they kept the zombies alive. The not in my backyard crowd, that's not going away either. It's going to be interesting to see how that's addressed with regards to these policies. 50% of Aussies live in these three areas. Guys, this is market competition, okay? Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And not the entire red circle, just the blue bit on the circle there. So, I think the furthest inland I've managed to get was Longreach for a project that I worked on. I had to fly out there. And I made the stupid mistake of wearing a suit. It was really hot. But there's a lot of Australia that people don't want to live in. Okay? People will fly in, fly out, fly in, fly out, fly in, fly out. So if you're talking about, there's so much land, yeah, but it's desert. It's desert. It's hot. You got no services, no utility. You hug the coast. You're living in a modern metropolitan city with beautiful weather. And you're a plane ride to anywhere in the world. So that's going to continue the demand. And you've even got Perth. The world's most remote city, but some people like it there. I haven't done Perth. I should take the kids there. But what was that movie where the backpackers crossed the middle of Australia? That stopped me wanting to go in. You've got the NCC changes, the construction legislation changes coming out. every few years are driving up the costs. They add thousands to the cost. People push for changes. That's what we like here. Australia's a nanny state. And, well, nothing comes without consequences. You've got to understand, if people are advocating for this, what's the impact going to be? But I wonder how many of the people advocating for these policies are already established, already have a house, and don't care. Oh, you've got APRA interventions. You know, they'll change the rules to ensure they don't choke off credit. So just you keep that in the back of your mind. You've got family support. Most of the viewers of this channel would support their family to make a home loan repayment. And then you've got the FOMO impact, guys, where only, well, of the 10.5 million dwellings, 600,000 changed hands in 2021. And, you know, the 2% government loans, which I'd say are the most at risk, just based on the fact that they couldn't get more than a 2% deposit together, are tiny in comparison to the overall market. So will it make an impact? And then the demographic shift that we're seeing. One in people having less children and smaller households as a result of that. So, I mean, we jump back over here. You can see how, well, this is just more of government intervention in the housing market and stimulating the sector. It's just one of the pillars, guys. So if people are there predicting, they're saying, oh, people are struggling to make their repayments and this and that, of course, we're going to hear a negative spin in the media. They're always going to play it up. But I think average Aussies are going to do better than people anticipate. And, well, they're just throwing more money at housing, guys. What do you reckon? Will this provide a solution to the housing? Oh, will it increase supply enough to make a dent in costs? I don't know. I hope it would. I hope it would make housing more affordable. That's what we want. That should be the platform of the Conservatives. They should go hard on housing affordability. But it's hard to achieve. All the federal government can do, and people are blaming the federal government, all they can do is throw money at the problem. Where Labor here is being very smart, using the National Cabinet and getting them to work against each other to get a solution. But you need to have federal, state, and local councils all coming together, all coming on the table to get projects up. And then you've got to fight the not in my backyard crowd who don't want to see change. So good luck to them. You know, if you're in the housing game, if you're in the construction game, guys, there you go. You know, there's a flow of more potential work for you coming. What do you reckon? Anyway, thank you all for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Check out HeiseBim or HeiseDoes if you're interested in my other content. And I will promise to one day put a video up there. I'm flat out at the moment, so it's hence the one video a day right now, guys. This is my break. You know, I've been drafting and working all day, and this is my break now at the end of the day. I should do a video on HeiseBim about the new Autodesk Forma software, which I've played with a bit, and it's kind of useless in Australia. You can support the channel via YouTube or Patreon, and thank you to everyone that does, using our referral links, buying our merch, or calling me if you need an architect. Wait, I'll turn off that sound. Hang on. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.